The basement, where nerdiness thrives, and grown men rant about toys.
What up, basement dwellers?
What up? We're back for another excellent episode, if you will.
Yeah, no bogus stuff here.
I was about to say, hopefully not bogus, but we are definitely going to face the music. I do think, and I texted this to you, it's very fitting that we decided to do this for the second one, because we caught up with Ghostbusters and Bill and Ted. I love this movie, dude.
Yeah, all the way. It's crazy because we have. Who would have ever thought that Bill and Ted 3 would take better care of its characters, story, and overall legacy than Clerks fucking 3?
Right. Like, the word that kept coming to my mind was genuine. You know, even Clerks 3, which I was a little more lenient on, there's still moments that feel kind of like jerked, knee-jerked, if you will. This, everything kind of like fell into place. Like, I just kind of felt like it was all genuine, and it wasn't like schmaltzy heartfelt. Everything just came naturally from the heart. I was like, this feels like naturally where these characters would go, and all the new characters rocked.
Yeah, there was no nothing felt forced. Even the nostalgic stuff wasn't forced, and I like that it didn't rely too heavy on that. It's weird because the first movie is your average kind of 80s slacker comedy, but then at the same time, it is absolutely nothing like your average slacker 80s comedy.
It's got this wild premise.
Yeah, and that's what makes it memorable, and that's what makes it so loved. And then the sequel, Bogus Journey, like I said, how do you make a sequel to a movie like that? And somehow they figured it out, they made it, and Bogus Journey to me is even better than the first one, and
Agreed.
progresses things forward, builds on the lore. It does everything a great sequel should do, and it goes batshit. It is one of the most unpredictable franchises out there. Like, who'd have thought that a sequel would involve them going to heaven and going to hell, and robots and shit, and then even with
balances like this weird juxtaposition between like reality, like their version of reality, and fantasy. Like, the mundane is so, like, the way it's designed when they're in San Dimas is so like colorful mundane, you know what I mean? But like, there's just this weird no rules attitude to the whole series.
Yeah. It's almost like the Wizard of Oz, like when when they're there at home, everything's pretty normal. It's all pretty average. But then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, boom, crazy shit be going down.
Boom, station.
Yeah, station. And with this one, I had, absolutely no kind of predictions for this movie. I had things that I would have hoped to see, and I actually believe that all of that did come to fruition, and then some.
It's a movie that delivers, and it doesn't feel like a cash grab because it still has that low budget feel, which is admirable in some places. And then I have some nitpicks in other areas, but the shortcomings of the budget don't outweigh just, again, that pureness. That, again, it just feels like a real sequel. It doesn't feel like a reboot, even though it's playing with reboot elements. Like, we're going to introduce the kids.
Yeah.
We're going to do like, a little bit of the first plot again. They kind of mishmashed Bogus Journey and An Excellent Adventure together, but not in a way that, again, felt forced or
like,
contrived.
it's definitely not a repeat.
It's like a album.
Yeah, it's like a greatest hits album. They take slight elements and slight ideas, but completely run in an opposite direction from it. You know, instead of picking up historical figures for a history report at school, they're picking up some of the most influential musicians of all time, and so they can use that to help make one of the
in their life,
mm-hmm.
basically.
And then the only reason they go to hell is because, we got to, number one, we have to foreshadow the return of death, and we have to get back to death. So all that's really cool. And I like that the robot does not look like, it's almost like robot technology in the future went backwards.
Yeah, it went RoboCop.
Yeah, like, because in Bogus Journey, the original robots just look like normal Bill and Ted. Wouldn't nobody ever notice a difference. But now this robot, straight up fucking robot.
He looks like something out of Dragon Ball Z, basically. He has this damn, cooler. He looks like a giant refrigerator, basically.
Yeah. So, like we always do, we ask you guys what you thought of the movie, and that we'd read out your comments on the show, and we got a few responses. A buddy, Philip Parks, says, "I thought the movie was good. Buff Bill and Ted were hilarious." Yeah, that was great.
I would say that was my favorite iteration of them, for sure.
Yeah. And then Lacey Lou from Cut to the Chase podcast says, "We both loved it," talking about her and Dan, I'm sure. "We both loved it, had a lot of heart and a great message. Only seen it once, but now I want to go rewatch it, LOL."
I am going to say, Lacey, that it is, this was my reaction. It's kind of how I felt with Ghostbusters Afterlife, but a million times more. It's so much better on a rewatch. I enjoyed it the first time around, but kind of when you're getting a new movie in a franchise that hasn't been around for a while, your mind is kind of in two different spots. You're looking to enjoy it, but you're also kind of oh, I hope I enjoy it. You're kind of in an analytical mode. I enjoyed it, so now, just looking back on it, giving it some time, it fits right in. It's a good hangout movie. You could sit back and you can enjoy it, and again, it feels right. It feels in place with the rest of the movies, despite the technological upgrades, for better or for worse. And what's funny is that, just continuing with the comment section, Dan Chase followed up right after.
Yeah, and so before I get to Dan Chase, Heath Williamson posted a gif of Mr. Burns off of The Simpsons saying, "Excellent." And then we got Dan Chase. Dan Chase says, "I really dug it. I do wish the song was better and a little more fleshed out. And we definitely need more Rufus references. Loved the Dave Grohl scene. Wish they really swung for the fence, though. Doubling down in nostalgia would have really worked for this one, but it was still great."
I'm kind of in the middle on that take, where I feel like it was balanced. I feel like things weren't... Again, the low budget kind of doesn't make it feel cash grabby, because it doesn't feel like this was a studio project. More so, these writers and Alex Winter have been trying to get it made for years, actually.
Yeah. A long time. And really, we could thank the current state of film right now, where everyone is doing legacy sequels like this, for letting the ball get rolling on this movie. And especially...
Pretty much. And getting Keanu Reeves involved, because I feel like without the social media buzz, he might have come back, but maybe let's say he wanted to come back. There's also agents involved. There's people that's you're John Wick, you're this A-lister now, maybe kind of almost a Bill Murray Ghostbusters situation, holding him back. So I think after the fans said hey, they're working on it, we want it too. I think Keanu Reeves was the cat in the bag. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Once they had him, they're we're going for it.
Yeah, it's definitely, because Keanu has always wanted to make another one, but he's always been busy. But I do think that right now he's like a massive star, especially in the past 15 years or so. Like he has blown up, and I think with him being blown up and so far in the zeitgeist right now that I think that helped. He back in the day, who would have ever thought Keanu Reeves would be such a A-list actor?
And take it so seriously.
Yeah.
Because, like, John Wick is not like a crazy, like it's not a Shakespearean performance by any stretch of the imagination, but he's a badass, and he does convey the more dramatic scenes, better than you would expect, especially in that first one. And then I think also just through interviews, through fans getting a deeper glimpse into his life and what he's been through, he's really drifted away from the whoa dude stereotype, you know what I mean? So it is odd, but also welcome to see him jump back into it. I don't think he brought back the upbeat energy 100%, but I think it worked for this older Bill. He's not, Ted actually, he's not melancholy, but he's kind of like a bittersweet Ted in this movie, which is interesting.
Yeah, it is cool. Ted is a little more beat down, and Bill is very much more, we need to do this. Alex Winter fell right back into the part pretty damn easy, it seems.
Yeah, for sure. It's like he's just been waiting for it, and almost
especially for somebody who hasn't really acted in many, many years. He's mostly a behind the camera guy.
Not since Freaked, which what I was about to say, we're probably never going to see this, but let's get a Freaked reboot going. Come on, just not CG. Let's just really, like Dan Chase said, let's swing for the fence.
Yeah, hell yeah. So, let's go ahead and start the movie. Let's start the review here. I love that this movie starts off with the old school Orion logo.
Right?
And
music too, it's like you just rented it from fucking Blockbuster or something.
Right, like film grain and all, man. I'm like, this right here, we're going there, man.
On a side story, and I'm not sure if I told this on the podcast before, but have you ever watched UHF with the commentary from Weird Al?
No, I've never seen it with the commentary.
Right at the beginning is the Orion logo, and he's just born to make parodies, man. He parodies the Orion logo. He's like, Orion is bankrupt now. And that's how it begins.
Oh, shit.
They're back, baby.
So we get a little quick expedition dump, as we should, with Bill and Ted's daughters telling us what's going on. And what's really funny is they're like, yeah, this was the first time you saw them. And it's like old footage from the first movie. And then she's like, and this is probably the last time you saw them. And it's showing us, the ending of Bogus Journey. And I'm like, what do you mean probably? That was the last time we saw them.
Literally the last time. Cut to credits.
So this movie did have to do some retconning, some probably pretty serious retconning, but not too serious. I mean, because even at the original, Bogus Journey, it is a pretty definitive ending. During the Kiss song at the end, it's showing out this montage of how Bill and Ted's music has saved the world and all this. So they have to pretty much ignore all that. They got to kind of retcon all that. Really, the only thing that it does seem to keep in continuity is the fact that Death went solo.
Yeah, there is still a little bit of that end credit in there where, for a moment, in a I don't even want to say metaphorical, but for a moment, it's like when Metallica changed the world, one of those VH1 documentaries. You know what I mean? It's like they were a fad, Bill and Ted. Like they really they hit big for a time. And then I love during the opening montage, you see the 99-cent sticker get slapped onto one of their albums.
Yeah,
that was a great gag. But there's actually an interesting story behind why they did this, because it's a retcon technically, but not real, not creatively. Because that whole end credit montage in Bogus Journey was not in the script. That was an editor's addition, just to fill in the end credits, funny gags. We're gonna have them like, what is there, a cutaway where they're shaking hands with the president or something like that?
Yeah,
Like
okay.
a moon. So we could assume maybe they did all that, maybe they didn't. This movie does play around with alternate timelines a little bit.
It sure does.
But it wasn't the writer's intention. They actually, again, they've been trying to work on a third one for forever. When they saw that in the theaters, the writers were like, damn, that really just like douses our ideas for a third one. How are we going to get around that? So it wasn't their idea. It was meant to be something you don't even really think about. But now here we are with the third one. You do have to think about it a little bit. Hey, didn't they go to the moon? Didn't Death have like, oh my god, I know this is a reference from this movie, but didn't he have like 40-minute bass solos or something?
Yeah. So, and I remember when this movie was coming out, and they announced the ladies playing Theodora and Billy. I remember a handful of people were outraged, but I'm like, you know what? Let's do it. You know, they don't say whether or not they're boys or girls when they show the children. You know, they're freaking babies.
And they write it away. They're like, remember when you used to call them Little Bill and Little Ted? It's because they acted like Bill and Ted. You know?
Yeah, I mean, and plus they're straight up technically named after them any damn way, Billy and Theodora. So
yeah, and isn't it? Didn't they like reverse it though? Like, isn't Ted's daughter's name? I got them mixed up a little bit. Didn't they do that gag where the names are technically swapped? Or am I just mixing shit up?
yeah.
Like,
but,
I think Ted's daughter is Billy, right?
Yeah, it's weird because it's in this movie. I really don't know if it's too clear. Because I mean, both of them just say dads.
I was just about to say that. Yeah, it's like they're just a unit. They're like a hive mind. Really.
Yeah. So, well, one of them did say, call him Uncle Ted, da-da-da-da-da, but I can't remember which one said it. So yeah, a fun little expedition bit at the beginning.
Could I also say on a side note, because I did make this a note later on, but you hit on a good thing there, where people were outraged that they had daughters. Once you actually watch the movie, if anybody tries to, like, spin, like, some kind of agenda on it, like, it's such a genuine and wholesome movie that it's like, it's not even really thinking like that. Like,
yeah,
they just happen to be daughters. Even at the end, there's like, you guys weren't backing us, we're backing you. If anybody complains about that, it's like, that's such a non-issue, where it's like, musicians, artists, like, a lot of people, most people, get inspiration from their children from time to time. You know what I mean? Listen to the latter Cranberries album, since they just had those re-releases of the demos. I was thinking of that. Half the later Cranberries albums are like odes to her kids. There is that effect in people where it's like, hey, you may not like it or not, but they do bring a certain energy, or they bring back a certain flair in their parents.
Yeah.
You know, if the relationship is right enough, and they are a tight family unit. You know, I was going to make a joke with the therapy sessions where it's like, Bill and Ted basically want to be in a quad relationship, but they just don't want to say it.
Oh God, yeah.
That's what it is. Like, I'm not trying to be. It's like they are too innocent to find the word for it, but it's like that's what they like. It's there's not enough people to be a polycule, but it's like they want to be a quad.
A quubble.
A quubble, yes. A quubble through time. That's going to be the sequel. Somebody did make a YouTube comment that I fucking loved. Might not be a good title for a Bill and Ted sequel, but somebody said Bill and Ted 4, The Brides of Denomalos.
Huh.
If they do decide to do one more, they probably won't. I would be welcome to see more Bill and Ted Adventures. Maybe another animated series, you know?
Yeah, they did say a fourth one would be up to the fans, and if they want to see Billy and Theodora have an adventure or something. But I'm like, yeah, let's leave it at this.
It does kind of close the book on here. I know we don't have Alanis Morissette as God to, like, really come in and close the book, and it's not like that really changed anything anyway. But,
Yeah.
you know, it does seem like a really good ending to the Bill and Ted it feels good as a trilogy.
Mm-hmm. And so they mention, yeah, they didn't. They're still trying to work on the song. This beginning is the most perfect ass beginning. They're at a wedding with Missy.
I'm already like,
Missy is now getting married to Ted's younger brother Deacon. And it is too fucking perfect. In the first movie, there were all the jokes about Bill's dad being married to Missy, this young lady. And then in the second one, she divorces Bill's dad and marries Ted's dad. Now she is getting married to Ted's brother. It is too damn fucking hilarious.
and I don't know why the writers intended to make this character so fucking weird, but it's just so hilarious. And they have this weird monologue where they're like, they basically go through what you were just going through, which is good for, again,
Like, she used to be our babysitter. Then we asked her to the prom. And then she married Bill's dad. And
now, Ted's dad is technically his stepson. It's so weird.
Oh shit, too damn good. So, we
It's
get
a bit of an exposition dump, but again, it feels natural. It feels just like, hey, there does need to be some explanations here when you set up such a weird scenario. And what we were going with Keanu Reeves' reputation recently is this does kind of reintroduce Bill and Ted to a new generation without feeling like a reboot.
Yeah.
Even the opening monologue, the daughters are technically the narrators, but not really. They're like the bookends.
Yeah.
And it's the most simple, this is what happened, you're good. It doesn't take a lot to understand, who Bill and Ted are,
Yeah, exactly.
They're, slightly smarter Beavis and Butthead.
Mm-hmm. And so, I really think it's cool. Another little joke, Deacon is now a police officer. Just like his dad. So there was already, at the very beginning of this movie, there's already a lot of thought put into it. We have the original dad there. We have the original Missy there. How cool is that?
The original, I think it's Bill's dad. Yeah, because that's Ted's dad.
Yeah.
Bill's dad, unfortunately, the actor passed away, so he wouldn't be there. But it is the original Missy actress. So you have, it's a wedding scene, but it's set up like a reunion, basically.
Yeah. And so then they say, all right, we're going to give you guys, the first taste of our new song. And the name of this song escapes me, but there's a lot of the first three movements of da 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 da. Yeah, part one. So first off, here's the thing. If you're gonna write a song that is supposed to unite the world, you're not gonna do it with some crazy ass avant-garde prog shit.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's going to be some top 100 thing that's easily accessible.
It's got to be something just kind of easy and simple. But when they start getting it going, I love it because the song the song kicks ass. They're using loopers, and then it's showing that these dudes are, in the past 25 years in this world, they are pretty incredible musicians, playing trumpets, bagpipes, throat singing. Yeah, for real. Rufus did not lie to us. They get better. It's more than just the rock and roll guitars now. It's all right, you guys, how about make the song and then experiment, Make the song and then experiment. But it's
they're in their Beach Boys phase right now. They're so creatively bankrupt that they're going for ambient singing and they're using a fucking a literal. It reminds me of Walk Hard. You can either stay leave the band or learn to play a fucking theremin.
Yeah. Seriously,
I need an army of didgeridoos.
Yeah, that shit was fucking great, man. And
the song actually does kick ass, and it's funny seeing so Missy and Deacon are trying to dance to it. They're being thrown off. There's one extra in the background who rules. Like, he's this guy with a mustache who's just bobbing his head to it. He rocks. Whoever he is, like, that's awesome. And then the daughters are just so supportive in whatever they do. Like, they acknowledge, what's weird about their daughters is they're clones of Bill and Ted, but not carbon copies. Like, they acknowledge that this is some weird shit. Like, Samara Weaving, who's amazing in everything she does, just side note, she gives Ted's daughter the look like, whoa, when they're saying the song title, like, this is going to be some weird shit.
Yeah.
And even if they acknowledge this might not be the right time or place, they still dance along with, they are into what their dads are doing because they believe that they're going to save the world. It's a huge burden on the entire family, except for the princesses, who are still just relatively background characters. But it made me think, because you already have set up for so many cliche sequel things. Like, you have the son who's a cop getting married. Like, he's obviously like, why can't you be more like your brother? Like, you think the plot's going to be more there. That's more so the dad's qualm. But the real weight and drama of the movie isn't that. That's why when he gets zapped and sent to hell, it's like, oh, you were right. I love when they do that, because it's like, yeah, that's not even the point of the movie. That's what a bad sequel would do. What this is about is the weight of being told you're going to save the world and how that affects your family. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like they're told that they're going to write one song that's supposed to unite the world. Imagine sitting down and trying to do that.
It's just impossible. Like, I think everyone in life, even the most even-keeled person, I think we all go through insecurities where I know me for certain, I sometimes set, like, golden standards for myself in my head, and I have to, like, calm down for a moment and be like, hey, wait, are you expecting yourself to be perfect here? Because that's just setting yourself up for failure. That's never going to happen, you know what I mean? You can be good, but you know what I mean? Perfection is a subjective thing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you write a song that's going to save the world? So, yeah, I would come to a point where if I'm in my late 40s, reaching 50, I would be doing some didgeridoo shit, too. I would be playing that shit with my feet.
And so, after the wedding, yeah, we have you know, the song doesn't go over too well. And, Ted's dad is talking shit, like, you should have got real jobs, da-da-da-da-da. You know, and
the princesses don't even respond. They're like, I think Red Letter Media pointed this out in their Half in the Bag, where they were like, it's so funny how he states the obvious. Like, how does it feel that you guys are the only ones that have jobs? And they just don't respond. He just walks away. They don't even, like, it gets expanded on later in the therapy scenes, but I love how it's just kind of a running gag. A little bit of a mean-spirited gag, but the princesses are always relegated to, like, background silent characters. They get more lines in this movie, but what's really funny is, like, as useless as they are in the plot, in the lives of Bill and Ted, they hold it down. I don't know what jobs they have, but they're the only ones that have jobs. They're the only ones that are thinking realistically. And it's fucking crazy to think that, like, these women from the Crusades are thinking straighter than fucking Bill and Ted at this point. You know what I mean? Crazy in a good way. Like, it's a hilarious setup.
yeah.
They
And
hold it down, and you know the daughters don't even really acknowledge that. I'm like, bro, I would be like, if these women were my mom and I was Bill and Ted's dad, like, I would be worshiping the ground they walk on, because it's like they're the only reason they have a house right now.
Yeah.
And they have good fucking houses. They're right next to each other on like a little cul-de-sac.
yeah, and they live in California.
Yeah,
You know.
like, so things are bad, but they're not really bad. What I like about, going back what I was saying about the weird juxtaposition of the Bill and Ted universe, is any other, like, sequel that's 30 years later would have gone grimdark. Like the Star Wars sequels, like Luke's vanished, Han and Leia broke up. It's like, no, there's a thread of that in the movie that's like, oh, we may lose our wives because, you know, they're fucking smart. You know what I mean? They're wising up. We're fucking schmucks.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's never like the beginning. They don't just open us up on that. There's hope in this movie, and I really enjoy that. There's a line where Ted is like, I feel like things are going to change in a most excellent way. And he kind of sounds a little bittersweet, but there's like a hope in his voice where it's like, you know, take a shot every time fucking Alex Winter lifts up his fist and goes, "We're gonna fix this."
Yeah. Yeah, very.
I digress. This is what I love about this movie too. It gives you so much to talk about, but in a positive way.
Yeah.
It's not like counting the nitpicks, like I didn't like this, I didn't like that. It keeps adding on to that. Bill and Ted is such an odd blend of humor, and you could tell there's just so much love for these two. They're not even morons. They're just lovable schmucks. That's the word for it. They're not losers either. Like, there's always a threat. Like, their dads think they're losers, but it's like they're relatively liked. They're kind people, you know? Like,
yeah, just very lovable, doofy guys.
The writers really tapped into, because I believe they came up with Bill and Ted in like an improv class where they themselves were just being these whoa dude characters before they even had Alex and Keanu. There's just like, they really tapped into this singular, unique sense of humor that only they could really pull off. You know, because nobody really compares Bill and Ted to Back to the Future or Doctor Who, even though Doctor Who and them both travel in phone booths. Like, it's such a one-of-a-kind thing. They really couldn't have done this without, like, the original writers involved. Thank God this didn't go like another Keanu movie, the way of The Matrix Resurrections, where it's like, we don't want some of the people involved. We recasted Morpheus. Like, how the fuck do you do that?
Yeah. So then we cut to the therapy session, right? After the wedding?
Yeah, and Jillian Bell plays the therapist, and I saw her in the trailer. This is what I mean by even like the side characters. Every addition feels so welcome. Jillian Bell's been in Curb Your Enthusiasm, that Seth Rogen Christmas movie the night before. She was Seth Rogen's wife in that, and I don't know. They just have a really good way of picking their cast for this. Everyone fucking fit in so well. I love her facial reactions when she's just trying to piece together, like, all right, are these people like really from this time period, or is there some like really bad psychosis going on?
Yeah, they play with that just a little bit, and so they're in the therapy session and it's talking about, normally when we do couples therapy, it's just the couple, not all four of y'all together. And Bill and Ted cannot, basically they just can't individually say, I love you. And it's all, we love you, and...
Dude, they're a quad. They don't, I don't assume Bill and Ted use the internet. They're still using fucking cassette players and Walkmen to listen to their music, right? It's the wives who are on the computers. They're at work making the money. So I don't think they're up to date on modern terminology. So they just, you know what I mean? I feel like this therapy session could have gone a lot quicker if they're like, this is what we want to do. And they're like, well, we don't want to do that. So they're like, we love you. Well, no, Ted and I love you,
Yeah.
And Joanna, I think this is the first time they were given names, I believe.
Yeah, seriously, I don't think any names were mentioned in the other ones. Because like you said, they were just kind of background in both movies. And, they get a little more to do in this, which we'll get into. It is one of my slight complaints, but I get why. But we'll get there when we get there.
The princesses are recast. They do get a couple more lines, but I do see, as fucked up as it sounds, the joke kind of always was that it's like they're these hot girls that put up with Bill and Ted shit. And they're good characters in the movies. They do go the extra mile to give them a little bit more characterization, but at the end of the day, it's like that's the joke, is that Bill and Ted had this extraordinary adventure, and they just, the princesses just see them a certain way, you know what I mean? But now, it's been 30-odd years in the future for them. Like, they're, like, this isn't how it works,
Yeah, so not a whole lot is revealed during the therapy session, except for the fact that they're kind of struggling, and Bill and Ted are faced with, all right, it's probably time to just grow up and get office jobs.
Just, put on a suit and tie and work for the man.
Yeah.
They do a sad little bluesy air guitar.
And so at this point, the therapist asks Bill and Ted to leave. And so they do, so she could talk to the ladies, alone. And they go home. Turns out they live next door to each other. We open the garage, and their daughters are over there listening to some music. And
This is transcendent, man. I did love that line.
yeah, and the daughters, you get a lot more of the daughters here and bits of their personality. And like you said, yeah, they are like their dads, but very not carbon copies. It's almost like real life, where like the children are fairly resemblant of the parents, but not a carbon copy. And the way they compliment their dad's music at the wedding was really cool.
That's what I mean. They're supportive, naive for
Yeah,
sure. But
and they
again, they definitely
get
think
it.
they're
Like they totally get it. They were raised on all kinds of music, and that's another thing I like too is in the original it's heavy metal, it's hair metal-y stuff, but I do like that over the years these two ladies were raised up on just more than rock and roll stuff. They like Mozart, they like classical music, they like jazz music, so that's what I like. So you can see that like Bill and Ted obviously switched up on a lot of the music they listen to as well, especially given the fact that they're jamming bagpipes and trumpets and theremins and shit,
Oh, for sure. They're just music lovers. They are speaker brains. You know what I mean?
And
They collect the albums. They collect the jewel cases. One thing that I was going to say is that the evolution of music goes along with Bill and Ted. That's right. They aren't just specifically hair metal guys. Where in Bogus Journey, we get a little bit more industrial. They reference Megadeth, which is thrash metal. When they're in hell, I believe they make a reference about Megadeth albums.
yeah,
And we got Primus. We got, the dude from Faith No More who isn't Mike,
yeah. Which is awesome as shit, cause and then with this movie too, they used a lot of Lamb of God, the guy from Animals as Leaders. He's got a weird name.
He's in the movie, though.
Tassin Abasi, the guitarist from Animals as Leaders, did the air guitar riffs. And apparently they got his band Animals as Leaders to do a version of the world-saving song from the end of the movie that I need to look up and hear. So the music director of the movie thought that this is where guitar is headed, so we're going to use these guys. So it's cool that they kept the overall idea there, but updated it slightly.
And jumping ahead, it's kind of fitting that they have Dave Grohl in this movie because, again, it's like Bill and Ted seem like that. Those guys were just up on all things rock. Right? They listen to the top 100 rock. They listen to the obscure shit. They are, across the board, just big time music collectors.
Mm-hmm. And so
cameo because, again, going back to Bogus Journey, even going back to Excellent Adventure. Joan of Arc was Kate from the Go-Go's. And then you have, again, Faith No More, Primus. It's always been steeped in rock and roll history, ultimately.
Yeah. And then...
And Kid Cudi.
Yeah, Kid Cudi. All right, I don't know a thing about that guy.
Me neither, really.
So, I don't know any, but we'll talk about him more when we get there. Because, at the beginning of the movie, it's something I forgot to mention, at the beginning of the movie, when they're giving you the exposition dump, time is just getting mixed up and fucked up. You have different historical figures zapping into different parts of time, and Kid Cudi gets zapped away from a concert. And there's some funny shit that they do with that, but then at the same time, it's kind of like, this is kind of weird.
It's the green screen effect, really. I think that makes it a little more awkward because it kind of makes it look like a YouTube video. This is where the budget has its like give and take. Where I appreciate that it was a low budget affair, where it's like we're just gonna have the original crew, as much as the original crew as we can get, and we're gonna do it. We're gonna make it. There's some moments of CGI that look awesome, like when they go through the telephone booth and we get an updated look of the time traveling. That all looks spectacular. I have no complaints with the CGI there, but scenes like in the future, where they're meeting the Great Ones, it kind of feels like a Star Wars prequel a little bit, where it's like we have flat side medium shot of people walking on like on a ramp basically, and these wide vista shots, like the background is just like this open futuristic space of white and gray. And even like what you were saying about the robots before is like, yeah, the future didn't really look like that back then, but this movie also, they thought about it in advance, where it's like, well, timelines are getting fucked up, things change, you know, they didn't write the song when they needed to and stuff like that. So in that, you know, the time travel rules of Bill and Ted are not as solid as something like the Terminator, but like they do have something there where it's like stuff will change if stuff gets screwed up, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And so the girls leave, and Bill and Ted sit there and just kind of reflect on what was going on, and then you really get it, man. Ted's talking about selling his fucking Gibson and just kind of stopping and shit, and they're like, that's where it's like really hitting like, damn, they're not gonna do it.
Will this be the end of Bill and Ted? Basically, it's like that moment, but I'm glad they do it right there, because again, kind of subverting expectations in a good way, not like a Star Wars sequel, is this would be like a middle moment in any other movie.
Yeah, this would be like the part where they break up and split up for a second, and you follow each of them for about a half hour moping around and whining
Filler, yeah.
till somebody has an epiphany. So this movie, like the other two, you know, just subverts expectations. Like I said, completely unpredictable. And so while this is going on, this time-traveling egg appears in the cul-de-sac. And it's that lady, I don't know her name, but she's on What We Do in the Shadows.
It's Kristen Schaal, and I remember her more so for her voice acting roles through Gravity Falls. She played Mabel on that show. She's the dinosaur in Toy Story 3 and 4. Very recognizable voice. Very unique, awkward, kind of cutesy style of humor.
Yeah, has a very Victoria Jackson vibe to her voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that her name? Who is also in UHF?
I'm not sure. Which character are you thinking of?
I want to say she was, God, I don't know. She was on Saturday Night Live back in the day. She's friends with Weird Al.
Because when I think of UHF and girls, I think Fran Drescher.
Yeah.
But what I was going to point out is that her style of humor, again, is very different from a George Carlin. But when you look at her face, and then you also see that she's also the daughter of the Great One, I could definitely see, like, that's their kid, you know. She has some Carlin features in her face that make it really work.
Yeah, so she tells him, okay, shit's going down, and the council wants to see you guys. And so Bill and Ted are like, okay, yeah, they love us, man. What can go wrong? And while this is happening, Billy and Theodora are witnessing it. They just happen to see it out there, and they're totally cool with it. They're, you know, they've heard the stories growing up, I'm sure, so
they're amazed, but they're not completely like, what the fuck?
Yeah, like they're not like, what the fuck is going on? You know, it's not freaking them out. They're just like, oh shit, our dads are in trouble.
It's more like, yeah, it's happening now. It's happening.
Yeah. And so they get to the future. And it's funny when they walk out, they're like, dude, the future. Oh shit! And here's something I'll say this movie does above a lot of legacy sequels. All right, a lot of legacy sequels like to throw the catchphrases out there, right? And I have a big complaint about all the. I still have not seen this new Flash movie. Don't really care to.
Yeah, me neither.
But in all the trailers, we have Michael Keaton's Batman saying, "You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts." And how much do you weigh? And I'm like, okay.
Did he say how much do you weigh? I saw the "Let's get nuts" and I rolled my eyes because I'm like, why would he say that again? Like he doesn't know that that's a catchphrase.
Exactly.
It's not even a catchphrase. It was just a memorable line to us.
It was a
the
thing
audience.
that yeah, exactly. The way I look at it, I'm like, this is just the thing he said in that moment. There was a reason he asked her how much she weighed. There was a reason he said, "You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts." It wasn't something he says. It was something he said. So for him to say it again,
Man.
for him to say it again in this is just there. Oh, that's the thing that he said that one time. Oh, yeah. Like, no. To me, that was lazy and stupid. Well, in this movie, we get be excellent to each other and party on, dudes. Now, that's not necessarily a catchphrase, but what I like how they handled this is the fact that Bill and Ted, they don't know they're in trouble, and they think these people love them, and it went well the first time they did it. They say to themselves, let's do it again. And that's all we need to say, and it's all going to be okay. No, they say it, and it's like they're shut down. Like, no, motherfucker.
And it's not even like a whole bit either where they're like talking to each other like, maybe we should try that thing. They just do it. Because again, it's just what worked. I love when, the great one, the head great one, she's so stern and angry. She's like Bill and Ted, but they still respond with their little hand motion. Like, sup?
Yeah.
Sup? Yeah, and they get shut down again. Like, I don't want to keep using that term, subverting expectations, because it is a little, it does get overused, but that's what it is. It's getting the plot started. That it's like, listen, you guys aren't all what you're cracked up to be, and it doesn't feel unwarranted either. I'm gonna keep going back because I think the most relevant legacy sequels of the past couple of years, whether you agree or not, would be the Star Wars trilogy, just because Star Wars is so big in pop culture. They immediately scattered the heroes to the four winds and brought them into like a depressed state where the story of how they got there would have almost been more interesting than the trilogy itself. You know what I mean? If all that stuff was maybe relegated to a better written final movie, Episode 9, I would have loved to see, like, if you could explain why they got to this depressed state in a way that doesn't feel out of place or out of character. That's key right there.
Yeah, I hate to say it. I think this and Scream 5, did the legacy sequels the best. Out of all of them that I've seen so far, those two handled it the best.
Scream 5 was good. I think we talked about this on the Ghostbusters one, where it made me reevaluate the Scream series as a whole. So that's saying something.
Yeah, like, it's incredible how good Scream 5 was.
And it does the member berries. Like, you can't say it doesn't do member berries, but it does it in, again, a way that the audience can appreciate it. It doesn't feel like jangling keys. It feels like, oh, okay,
Yeah,
you're actually
like,
kind of doing something with this.
They-
Like, you acknowledge that we recognize the old movies. You know what I mean? It'd be weird if they don't acknowledge the old movies at all. There needs to be a balance, but it's not immediately like, this is out of character. Again, like, even when we were talking about Keanu Reeves being a little more understated, I never feel like I'm not watching Ted. You know what I mean? It still feels like that is what Ted would be as an older man.
Yeah, definitely.
Kind of like this chill surfer dude.
So they're told they have basically less than an hour to, or maybe just above an hour, to write this song and save the world. Because now, all time and space and reality is about to just explode. It's gonna go away. It's gonna the end. And
That's how this movie kind of differentiates itself from the other two. Because, like I said, it's kind of a best of. We're going to take elements from Bogus Journey and Excellent Adventure, but again, it's not just dealing with time. It's not just dealing with heaven and hell. It's reality itself. So there's kind of a multiversal thing in there, which is before like Everything Everywhere All at Once and Multiverse of Madness. So it doesn't go off the rails like movies like those would. Everything Everywhere All at Once in a more positive light, Multiverse of Madness in a little bit more of a messy light, but I still like that one. I like that this doesn't get bogged down in the new elements of the world. Again, it kind of goes into what we're going to save for later with the princesses, but it kind of feels like there was going to be more of a multiversal subplot with them. There's definitely, I don't own the DVD, but I feel like there's got to be a ton of deleted scenes with the princesses.
yes, and I would hope so. So Bill and Ted are like, okay, what do we do? Well, let's go to the future where we have wrote the song and steal it, which I think is hilarious. That is such a Bill and Ted way of thinking. And then when Ted says, well, wait a minute, isn't it stealing? And he's like, Ted, it's not stealing if we steal it from ourselves.
Oh, that too. That's perfect.
Yeah, that was a line that was in the trailer that I was like, all right, I'm on board with you guys. Like this right here, that is the perfect kind of Bill and Ted line right there. It's like, you guys are on it. You guys are on it.
And that kind of starts this whirlwind adventure. Like, there was the setup, and I love how this movie has such a good pace. There's a lot going on in the movie, which is probably why the princess stuff got more relegated to the side, but it never feels bogged down. I never felt confused by where the characters were.
Yeah.
So it managed to get so much in a good, like, hour and a half movie.
Yeah, they had to cram a lot, and they had to juggle a lot, and I think they did it pretty well.
Juggling act.
Because there was a lot of catching up that needed to be done, and there was a lot of stuff to juggle simultaneously, and the fact that they, it didn't take long. We're about halfway. We're about 30 minutes roughly into the movie when they steal the time machine, which is
everything kind of nice, quaint, tight. It doesn't feel like there's much filler going on. Which the Bill and Ted movies, I've never really had filler, in my opinion. There's too much going on for it to be filler,
Whereas, the main meat of the plot begins within 30 minutes, which is a perfect amount of time to get us where we're going. Whereas when we go back to Ghostbusters, it's about an hour into that movie by the time things really start moving.
Yeah, I was never checking my clock with this movie. I was never not engaged. I never felt like something was slow, like, oh, do we really need this here? And I didn't hate Ghostbusters Afterlife, but just comparing watches between the two podcasts, I definitely felt the length of that movie. And it is a longer movie,
yeah.
But still.
Yeah.
Django Unchained is close to 3 hours. There's some movies that are close to 3 hours, but pacing and editing make it feel like, whoa, wait, we're already done? That was crazy,
Mm-hmm. And, yeah, Ghostbusters is a lot longer, but it had less to juggle.
They added more on to juggle, honestly. They threw in that crunch bar. Like you said, they don't do fan service for fan service sake in this one. They do the air guitars every once in a while. They really only save it for the scene with Death, because that's where it's at its most triumphant. That's where you really need the air guitar.
Yeah, we get it a time or two here and there.
They don't even really say excellent and bogus that much. They still use their Bill and Ted rhetoric, but they're older now. I was going to point this out during the therapy scenes, that it's funny that, again, they're still in character. They're still using their Bill and Ted terms, but they're talking in their inside voices, and it's kind of like a weird, dramatic setting for them to be in, and it kind of just tickles my funny bone a little bit, seeing juvenile characters in really adult situations.
Yeah. And you get, what I do like is they add on to their vocabulary. Whereas when Bill says, oh man, future you is definitely one contentious dickweed.
Yeah, I wrote that one down. That was a good one.
So it's like that is such a Bill thing to say. And I've never heard him say it before.
And it spreads onto their kids too. Like, I don't know if like epoch was the word of the day in the writer's mind, but it gets brought up twice where the great one later on is like, oh, we just need to kill Bill and Ted. This is too much. Like, this is going to be the epoch. Like, we're just going to end Bill and Ted. But then what I mean is they spread on to their daughters, their vocabulary, because they're talking to either like Louis Armstrong or Jimi Hendrix, and they're like, don't you want to join this epochical band? They create like a new word for it.
Yeah.
Like that.
And so when this happens, Bill and Ted go to, about 2 years into the future. And, okay, well...
The Tuesday taco night.
Yeah, so let's go back. The lady in the Great One, she says, 25 years ago, y'all played at this place in front of X amount, millions of people. And then a couple days ago, you played for like 5 people at da-da-da, and all those people were there just for $2 taco night. That was kind of funny. But yeah, so they show up, and you've got a washed up Bill and Ted playing their song. I forgot the name of it, but Bill and Ted are excited because it's one of their songs. And they watch it, and it goes nowhere. And future Bill and Ted tell them, they start, oh shit, they're here. They start running off. They start trying to hide. And,
which leads to a funny line. They go, hey, usses, stop.
Yeah. And so they talk to him for a second, and they're like, yeah, we haven't wrote the song yet. And the princess has left us. And you made it worse. Older versions of the princesses came and picked them up, and they tried to find different realities where they were actually happy with you, and couldn't find any. And
what's kind of weird is that we've been talking about Keanu Reeves' understated performance. He's weirdly more full of expression as the angry, depressed Ted. I wrote these characters down as Scott Bill and Saint Anger Ted.
yeah, which is real funny, man, because they start fighting, and God, what does he say? It pisses Ted off, and he comes over there and starts wanting to whoop his ass.
He's like, you're a dick, Ted. You're the one who couldn't write it, Ted. Yeah. I love that line.
Yeah. And so they leave there. They're upset. They're like, okay, well, we need to stop the princesses from leaving us. So I believe right after this, they show back up to the therapy session and start talking, and they're like, oh, so you time traveled again? They're like, yeah, and then you're gonna leave us. And they're like, we're not gonna leave you. So already clearly their wives aren't planning on leaving them. And
he's like, wait, Will, I'm gonna start drinking a lot.
Yeah. Oh shit. And while all this is, they're saying all this stuff, and the therapy lady is sitting there like just bewildered. And then they're like, she was like, so wait, she's like, yeah, we were born in 1408, and like, we're really from medieval England. Like, I thought that shit was great.
She's like, do you guys want to meet like 5 days a week? Like, she just wants to talk to them every day.
Yeah, she's like, I think we need to do 3 to 5 days a week.
I just want to get you away from these fucking guys, because they clearly got you wrapped up in some weird cult. They've clearly been talking to Egon Spengler, and I don't like that.
Yeah, and so Bill and Ted leave, and then that's when out the window they see older princesses popping up. And so the present princesses go with them, and then what? George Washington pops up sitting there.
Yeah, and she rushes out the room. So that's kind of like the end of the therapist character. She's just like, fuck this.
Yeah, she was just like, no. She just
Nope.
noped right on out of there. And so when now this is happening, that's when great leader and Kelly Rufus realize that they stole the time machine. So she goes back to try and find them, and instead finds Bill and Ted's daughters. And they're like, she's like, yeah, you know, the world's gonna end. They need to write this song. And so Bill and Ted's daughters are, oh shit, we need to go help them out. We can help them put together a band to play the song.
I think in between this as well is when the great leader mentions that, you know, we're going to kill Bill and Ted, basically, and we have a robot for it.
Yeah, I think they show the robot. And
it's like the first introduction to the robot. We don't really see what its personality is like yet, but you just see this big fucker.
Yeah, this big ass motherfucker. It's like, yeah, it's a pretty intimidating robot.
He's played by, the actor's name is Anthony Carrigan, and he's most famous for the show Barry with Bill Hader. I know my brother really likes that show, but I haven't really watched a lot of it. I recognized him because dude is fucking Victor Zsasz in Gotham. I wasn't a huge Gotham fan, but I loved his performance as Zsasz in that show. So they worked the makeup really well with him.
Who the fuck was Victor Zsasz on there? Cause we watched about 4 seasons of that show.
Victor Zsasz is the bald guy with the really sunken in eyes, and with every life he takes, he kind of etches a little tally mark into his skin.
Damn,
so he's kind of like a Joker, kind of psychotic in a way, but he's not smart enough to be the Joker. Like, he's too out of his own mind. Like, he's a creature of habit, basically. Like, he needs to add more tally marks. And in Gotham, since it's a prequel, he's pretty much, like, smooth skin. Like, he's only got a couple of tallies on his arm. Like, he's just a thug. But in the Batman universe, he's, like, something out of, like, a Thomas Harris novel, you know?
So they go ahead and they zap out of there, and I think it follows them, doesn't it?
Bill and Ted.
Does it follow Bill and Ted, or does it follow after Billy and Theodora?
We cut back to the daughters because they realize that they're in trouble. They talked to Kristen Schaal, and this is where, this early on in the movie, they're already like, we got to put a band together.
Yeah, because they were talking about, we were just going to put a bunch of samples together and let that be the song, but no, we can go ahead and get like the best musicians ever. And so they show up at London, 1960 something, and go talk to Jimi Hendrix. They see him jamming, and I like it too that like Theodora just decides, yeah, I'm going to film this on her phone.
I just love that they added Jimi Hendrix at all. And Louis Armstrong. I mean, you have two fantastic greats of the music world. And in my notes, I know this probably would have just been filler, maybe wouldn't have fit in the plot at all. Maybe could be a future Bill and Ted premise, but it would have been a funny cutaway if they tried to get Robert Johnson and they see him talking to the devil.
Yeah, that would have been cool. That would have been cool.
They just happen to show up right at the moment he's fucking talking to Satan, because we've already seen what Satan looks like in the Bill and Ted universe, so it'd be funny seeing realistic-ass Robert Johnson, like you get an actor who looks like him, and then just this weird, practical-faced devil just shaking hands with him, Pink Floyd style.
Or wouldn't it have been even awesome if it was Death?
Right. Oh my god, he's just, and he didn't even get the credit. He's living in this shitty pad. Later on in the movie, I laughed at, like, we have this fucking Meatloaf-looking Dio album-looking hell. You know what I mean? With these flying monsters all over the place. And he's just got, like, a little pad.
Yeah.
With, like, sports posters and jerseys on the wall.
And I do like that they kind of follow the, instead of jumping back and forth, they kind of follow the girls for a minute. So we follow them on their adventure, and so they tell Jimi Hendrix, they're like, hey, look, do you want to be in my dad's band? And he's like, no. And just shuts the door on him. And so they're like, okay, we need to get somebody to help convince him. So they show up in 1922, New Orleans.
Louis Armstrong, basically.
Yeah, go get Louis Armstrong, which was really cool little bit, little rundown shack they're jamming in, and he's all cool about it. She's like, hey, play here, watch this guy. He wants you to be in his band.
It cracks me up every time I see it because I think about, again, these movies don't follow like quote unquote realistic time travel rules where it's like there's no paradoxes, there's no like. If you were given like a piece of space age technology playing a video of some guy you've never seen before, wouldn't you lose your fucking mind?
Yeah, like he's just all about it. She's like, here, I'm gonna show you this video on my phone.
He's just squinting like, oh, you guys gotta take a look at this.
Yeah, he's just cool. He just thinks the music sounds cool as shit.
Dude, like, since watching this movie, we, like, setting up for the podcast the whole time, like, stuck in my head, just, I'll be glad when you're dead, you rascal, you.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a great addition, and I'm glad they didn't do just all rock and blues musicians, where it's like, we're going to go back to Mozart, we're going to get, what was it?
Ling Lun.
Lin Lun.
Who was basically created ancient Chinese music.
Which is crazy. Like, this is where, like, it comes the closest to fan service, and it's still doing something new enough with it, where it's not, like, creatively bankrupt. Where the vibes of these scenes remind me, of course, of Excellent Adventure. But it's not like they're getting ready for, like you said, a show and tell. They're not trying to get back to... It's still a new premise, but it still keeps in line with that comedy. I love when Lin Lun starts playing the Mozart music on her flute, and Mozart's just getting all giddy. Like, this is fantastic.
Yeah, he shows it to her. He just shows it to her, and then she takes it back, and she knows how to play it, which was really cool. And then they...
My quote during that scene was like, damn, Mozart playing Lin Lun's flute, this is sexy.
And then they pick up Grom, this caveman drummer, which was sort of an odd choice, but I'm with it.
That's a gag,
I thought it was best. I thought the best pickup scene was when they picked up Mozart, though, and they show up in Vienna, and he's in there jamming, and then Hendrix gets out there, starts jamming with him. I was like, all right, that's too damn cool right there.
Jimmy versus Mozart, Dawn of Awesomeness. Dawn of Roll.
Very, very slightly reminiscent of when they had picked up Beethoven in the first movie. But I do think when they picked up Beethoven in the first movie is still one of the funniest damn parts. Because, like, they just show up and they're just kidnapping his ass, and he doesn't know what's going on because he's deaf, so he's still jamming while they're trying to grab his ass.
Yeah, Mozart's a little more cognizant. They actually convince him.
Yeah, he comes out there yelling at him. He comes out there bitching and yelling at him.
Stop making all that fucking noise.
And I think my only complaint is, all right, you get a slight bit of friendship with when they pick up Jimi Hendrix and Louis Armstrong. Hendrix is like, Louis Armstrong is like 65 years old. This isn't him. They're like, oh, they got me in 1922. And he's like, I love your music. It's very bluesy, but how do you girls say? And they're like, psychedelic. He's like, psychedelic. And, it's like, my only slight nitpick is there wasn't enough interaction with these characters, the historical musical figures, whereas in Excellent Adventure there wasn't a whole lot to juggle, so there was a lot of scenes with the historical figures hanging out, and you see this odd friendship between Socrates and Billy the Kid build up, and
gag with Sigmund Freud trying to hit on the girl.
Yeah, you don't get a whole lot.
It wasn't filler, but it could be seen as filler, but it's good. It's character building.
Yeah, you don't get a lot of that in this, because after this, it's kind of really done doing anything with the musicians. I would have liked to see more interaction between the historical musician characters. That would have been a little more fun, but it's a slight nitpick. Like I said, they had a whole lot they had to juggle around.
Yeah, because we still haven't gotten to hell yet, and so you still have to have all that. Like, Death hasn't really... We haven't even seen the first shot of Death, because the first teasing of Death is, like, when Ted's dad gets vaporized.
Yeah.
I don't know if I mentioned this earlier in the podcast, but I might have. It's just amazing that people could just fucking die in the Bill and Ted universe. Like, there's no, like, oh, they were defeated. No, you're dead. They're all going to hell.
Yeah, everyone goes to hell in the Bill and Ted universe.
We're all dirty fucking sinners.
But so before we get there, what happens next is, so the girls get the band together, and they show back up to the house. But before this goes on, we got to follow Bill and Ted. So they go little leaps into the future. What is it? The next future is it Dave Grohl's house?
Yeah, so this scene, like, if I do have to nitpick a little bit, I still wouldn't argue it's filler, but it could have been cut down a little bit, because it's more so just to get to the robot killing Ted's dad, which isn't even really Ted's dad. I mean, are we in an alternate universe? Right, we're in the future.
We're in the future. I don't think they go into, because I don't think we go into different realities, because they remember them when they showed up 2 years before, and they're like, okay, we have the song. And it's funny, they have British accents now, and they're wearing these pompous ass clothes.
Yeah, it reminds me of, I don't know if you've ever seen Regular Show on Cartoon Network.
I remember it. I never saw it.
In the early seasons, there's an episode very similar to this where they're starting a band, Mordecai and Rigby. They're not good yet, but they go into the future to, like, their rock star selves, who, again, of course, turn out to be shams and stuff like that. So immediately I was like, this is, like, I wonder if they saw a Regular Show and maybe took it from that. That's one of my issues with the scene, and I'm like, okay, like, this kind of concept's been done a little bit before. Number two, there's just really bad dubbing in this scene for some reason. Like, the ADR, when you have to sync up the actor's voice with the emotion, it's just kind of off a little bit, and you can tell their mouths are moving in certain areas, where particularly Keanu Reeves. Slight moments where, like, his mouth is moving, where his mouth is, like, moving not the way it should be. I'm trying to find the right way to describe it. It is such a small nitpick, but it's something that, of course, I would fucking see and get bothered by.
Weird, because I didn't really notice that.
It's so quick, just because the editing in the scene is kind of like quick cuts back and forth from the table. You can kind of notice it because the audio on Keanu Reeves is a little louder than the rest with his British accent. Maybe it's because Keanu Reeves doesn't really know how to do a British accent. I don't know why they would make him, like, I know it's supposed to be a sham, right? But are they trying to, like, bust his balls for Dracula?
That's exactly what I was gonna say, because you had said maybe he's not good at a British accent. I'm like, well, if you want any proof, let's turn on Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Right, and it's like, this is a comedy, so they definitely are leaning into, like, it could be shitty, you know what I mean? But I feel like Alex Winter is, like, nudging his damn shoulder, because Keanu Reeves famously, like, was not there for the Dracula shooting. Like, he was in between movies. He didn't really have time to practice. Not even like he would. He admits, like, I don't even think I would be able to do a good British accent, but if I had more time to, like, practice, maybe. But he's like, I was in between two other movies. I'm like, oh, I gotta do. The reason he did it was like, hey, it's Coppola.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm gonna say no to that.
And so they're pretending that they're huge rock stars now, and they're in this mansion, and they say, here's the song, man. And it turns out it's Dave Grohl's house. Bill and Ted are about to leave, and
that's a Dave Grohl twist.
yeah, and they're like, you know what? I hated the last version of Us's, but these Us's are really good. And then they open the door, and it's Dave Grohl. He's like, who the hell are you guys? What are you doing in my house? So they shut the door on Dave Grohl. And
I love Dave Grohl's attraction to comedic acting.
yeah,
Like, again, you had him in Tenacious D. He's been in a ton of different stuff, but even the Foo Fighters movie that they made before Hawkins passed away
yeah, I
was...
still got to see that.
Again, it's a bit of a sleeper hit. Like, it's not spectacular, but it's a nice, like, unexpected little... Like I would say about this movie, it's like a hangout movie. Fucking Kerry King from Slayer is in that damn Studio 666 movie. It's pretty wild.
Awesome.
He
And
plays like Brody, but like I'm like, holy shit, I'm like fucking Slayer.
so they run up there and they say, "This is Dave Grohl's song. He wrote it. We didn't write this. We don't want this."
We
And
got fucking Keanu Reeves in a really funny fat suit. It's not like a cartoony over the top one. It's just like kind of a realistic beer gut, and he's like scratching at it.
yeah,
When, like,
they rip off the stuff. They're balding now and just looking bad.
Because I was about to say that Sir Bill, his fucking British alter ego, he's kind of channeling like a Robert Plant, Jack Sparrow persona. He looks exactly like with the long hair. I'm like, is that fucking Robert Plant?
And what I think is funny is they've already taken the disguises off, and when Bill and Ted show back up, they're still trying to keep the ruse going and speaking with the British accents.
Yeah, like they just fucking melted off screen or something. Like, don't mind the man behind the curtain kind of shit.
Oh shit! And
Going back to the whole beer gut thing, because it also relates to when they see themselves in the future. This movie does have CG, but the practical like body builds that they have for this movie are really impressive. Like,
yeah,
yes,
they look cartoony, but not cartoony enough to like take you out of it.
It doesn't look like Alec Baldwin in the Cat in the Hat movie, where he has just like he might as well have just like a pillow under his shirt,
Yeah, and
Like,
so
they got them jacked later on. Like, I can't wait to talk about that.
yeah, so now Bill pulls a gun out on them, and they're like, we're gonna go back and we're gonna fix everything. And he's like, dude, you don't have to do this with a gun. He's like, well, do you want to know what happens if I don't pull a gun on you? And he puts the gun down and they start to run, and you hear the click, like, see, told you. And so they're like, well, what do we do, man? They know everything we're gonna do. Oh, then we're just gonna have to do something that they won't know. And I thought this was incredibly clever. Next thing you know, you see them wandering around with buckets on their head, and they're popping out of the balcony, and it's like, it makes so much sense. They don't know where they're walking. They don't know how they escape because they can't see anything because they got the buckets on their heads, which I thought was great. But at this time, SWAT team shows up, and Deacon and Ted's dad shows up, and what was funny is like, old Bill and Ted are like, oh man, they're gonna do the thing. Like, oh, I thought they would forget about this. And so they fall off of the balcony and they see all the shit going down. Then the robot shows up and straight up zaps fucking Ted's dad and the car, or the SWAT van. And I thought this was hilarious that Ted's dad is falling into hell along with the SWAT van. Like,
Yeah.
like the SWAT van has a soul and it's going down to hell.
All fans go to hell.
So I thought that shit was pretty damn perfect. And then they play a lot with it later on.
Yeah, I'd say it's even funnier when they're going back up. But this is the first time, and at first I thought like maybe it was an unnecessary shot, like seeing death floating around him. But then I'm like, well, no, he did just literally die. So this is actually the perfect spot where we see death for the first time.
Yeah, so it's nice foreshadowing that we're gonna get the reunion.
And he looks a little, like, no pun intended, grim. Like, you could tell he's, like, not in the best of moods since the breakup with Bill and Ted. He's kind of staring at Ted's dad like, you.
Yeah, I've been waiting for you. And
wild stallions, you pieces of shit.
And so now Bill and Ted move in a couple more years into the future, and it's San Dimas prison, and they hear this song, man, this kind of cool, weird freaking just grim ass song.
It's a chant, you know.
Yeah, and damn, this is more evidence that it's the same future, because they're like, what are you doing in prison? It's like, oh, it's because you had us take the fall for breaking into Dave Grohl's house. So
Yeah. So they went from beer guts to fucking like Schwarzenegger bods.
yeah,
Like,
they're like freaking ripped. And there's a lot of funny stuff here. They're like, yeah, that song, man, wasn't really a song. And he's like, yeah, it was. You know, use this song. That's the song. And I love when the robot shows up here, and they just straight prison right beat the shit out of the robot.
and he's sitting there like,
Yeah, and he's so helpless, and then he just wants to get a rise out of him. He says, it wasn't a song, and it pisses him off more, and they all start beating up on the robot some more. I thought that was great.
Yeah, like he doesn't even understand like humor or interaction, like just something in him. Like this robot feels emotions. He's like a weird kind of like atypical robot where he's socially awkward, and I really appreciate Anthony Carrigan's performance because this kind of mumbly, stumbly Vince Vaughn humor, as I like to call it, like I'm gonna ramble and awkward things are gonna come out. It's kind of like the modern form of humor in a lot of sitcoms, in a lot of different movies and TV shows.
Yeah.
And with that, it's kind of become the new trope, so it walks a fine line of feeling manufactured or feeling too forced. But this performance is on the money. Like, he nails every line delivery. I sent your daughters to hell. I fucking love this character.
And so now they go further in the future, and they see old Ted and old Bill lying in a old folks home, and they finally have the song, and they're like, there you go, and they give him the song, and I love the little goodbye. And he's like, I'm sorry I never was really there for you, Ted, but it's just that every time I saw you, I saw myself.
Yeah, it's this weird, Last Temptation of Christ scene of, these elderly, dying, almost 2001 A Space Odyssey. The makeup on them is hilarious. The faces that Alex Winter, in particular, pulls off as Geezer Ted. It's so funny. And like you said, the dialogue is, stupid smart, where it's I always saw myself. Yeah, me too. But it still manages to have such heart that it still feels like it's wrapping up or continuing an arc for them. We're getting them from point B to point C now in the plot. And it's such a silly premise, though, because when you really think about it, if you're going to twist it into the most cynical sense, this is the most narcissistic thing in the world. They're literally I love me.
Yeah. And so now Billy and Theodora and the rest of the band show up at the house, and then out of nowhere, Kid Cudi zaps over there with them. And it's funny because Kid Cudi is all hip to the time travel lingo.
Yeah, he's the one who does the techno babble.
Yeah.
Which was out of nowhere. I liked that. Because, hey, he's here.
Yeah. And then the robot shows up and just zaps them all. And they all go to hell.
Which is, yeah, he could have zapped all those prison guys, too. I love how in that moment, everything that this robot does, I don't know why they programmed him like this, or it's a glitch, but he's kind of like the inconvenient robot.
Yeah, when he zapped him, he was just like, oh no, oops.
And, he doesn't even realize what he did. Was I supposed to do that? I love later on where it's well, I'm supposed to kill Bill and Ted. Well, we have the song now. I don't really know what to do now.
Yeah, he's like, I have no purpose now. And yeah, so he's like, I messed up. I lasered your daughters. You lasered our daughters? Yeah.
To hell.
And so now, the robot's sad and he's gonna kill himself. And
yeah, so again, the world of Bill and Ted is so quaint and somewhat innocent, but they get away with, these dark little moments of humor, going to shoot myself. That, I was dying, because don't expect that at all. Like, he's going through, like, a mental breakdown. And it kind of reminds me of, like, back then in the older movies, Bill and Ted used the word, fag a couple of times. There's a gag in both movies where, like, they hug each other, ugh, fag, or something like that. And what's weird about it is that they never come off as, like, hateful people. You know what I mean? Like, they're not using that as, like, the way it was designed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're just not
That's just an unfortunate leftover from the 80s.
Yeah, well, yes, making of the movie speaking, yes, it's just an unfortunate sign of the times. Character-wise, it's just like they don't really realize what they're saying.
Yeah.
They're kind of, it's the lingo. Same thing with kind of like this joke with, I was about to call him Barry, but Dennis. And I'm like, I'm surprised they went for that,
Yeah, so they hug on the robot, and robot kills them, and they all land in hell. And it's funny as shit, because it's like, how are you even here?
Yeah, right? So he does, in fact, have a soul. He has feelings.
And then you find out his name is Dillis Caleb McCoy.
Named after, what's her name?
Yeah, Kelly's ex-boyfriend.
Just to add insult to injury, I love the line that Kelly says before they all go to hell, like, what, are you going to send a robot to come kill me, Mom?
Yeah. And what I will say, man, hell has had one hell of a makeover. Because it looks so fucking cool in this movie. Yeah, we talked about how cheap some of the budget looks, like the people zapping here and there, and the future looking kind of sterile, but a lot of the budget went to making hell look fucking awesome.
It is pretty cool, and I've worked around it in my mind where I'm like, well, the hell in Bogus Journey looks more like industrial metal, this more looks like power metal, thrash metal, but hell's a big place, so, all that shit that's in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, that could either be their personal hell or just somewhere in there, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because the hell in Bogus Journey, they're right next to where the devil chills.
Exactly, they're in the bowels.
Yeah.
They're in the bowels of hell. And my one complaint with the green screen, in hell it's a little better, but it's like, I just miss that really colorful lighting and the camera angles, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, Bogus Journey is such a music video of a movie, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because in Bogus Journey, when they're going to hell, they're just flying through darkness. They're just falling through darkness. And then
there's those hallways, and then those grand fucking, like, sweeping shots of, like, these pits, And then their personal hells with, like, the granny and the East Bunny.
Yeah, and this, when they're going to hell, it looks like when Kenny goes to hell on the South Park movie.
Little boy, you're going to hell, yeah. Well, Metallica, Bill and Ted, South Park, it all connects. What happens after this, though? They all go to hell. This is where the dad finally concedes, well, if I'm in hell, well, this means that you guys time traveled and, like, all that you guys said was true. And I love the little line here where, he's reconciling with Ted, and he's like, I'm so sorry, son, I love you. And he's like, Bill's in the background like, thanks, Dad. He's like, I didn't mean you, Bill.
Yeah, I wasn't talking to you, Bill. But yeah, I do like this, because you also get character development, so now Ted's dad gets it. He accepts the fact, and he's like, you need to do this. You guys did go to hell. You did damn time travel and all this. Which is something that didn't necessarily need to happen. But the fact that they did it, it's like, all right, okay, we're actually letting him grow.
Exactly. And again, it's not being weighed down by typical sequel tropes where, again, like, this would be the end. In our generic Bill and Ted 3, right, we would have they put down the guitars in Act 3, then they get the time machine working, and then the ending is like, this would have been the through line, is like, oh, I made up with my dad, and hey, my kids are going to turn out pretty good too. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like they're just like, we haven't even gotten to death yet. We need to get to that. Let's just have them reconcile now. You know, this would be the good spot.
And so they need to go and find their daughters. Or actually, no, they need to find Death. And what's so funny is they're walking around and the robot's like, thank you, demons, you know, because they're trying to find Death. And the demons even mention, they're like, what the hell is that? Oh, that's a robot in hell.
Yeah. I love those extras. Yeah. They're just chit-chatting in the corner.
Yeah, just like, oh, it was so good. So out of nowhere.
They're the Silent Bob of hell.
And so we finally get it. Death is there, and he's playing hopscotch by himself.
No longer playing the baby board games. He's moved up in the world.
Yeah.
Actually, he's moved down. Like, he mentions that, like, Satan demoted him, basically.
Yeah, because he let them go back to Earth, and he went to Earth. And,
he pursued his dreams, man, with his fucking 40-minute bass solos, which I agree with him that, let's be real, I would be down for 40-minute bass solos. Primus was in the last movie. They should have taken a good note from them. You know, Les Claypool's still doing pretty good for himself, so...
Yeah,
I
thought that shit was funny about it. You doing 40-minute bass solos. Nobody else had time to play. It's funny that Death would get full of himself and venture on his own, and then they mentioned he tried to take the Wild Stallion's name, and they had to sue him, and got restraining orders on him, and I like that he's like, what, am I allowed to get close to you now? Is this too close?
Yeah, dude. So William Sadler fits like a glove, like right back into the Death role. And he's kind of become a little bit of like a Roger Waters, basically. He's like, the Wild Stallions are a spent force. You can't do it without me.
Yeah. And I like that, like, in his little room there, he's just got all this old Wild Stallions memorabilia and stuff. Like, he wants to move forward, but he can't get away from the past.
He keeps stoking that flame.
He's been down there just bitter about it all these years.
Doing in it, yeah. And all it takes is like one simple apology. Like, that's all he wanted, was just to be back in the Wild Stallions.
Yeah, and it takes the daughters coming in there and talking him up. And some of the song titles for his solo songs are great, like "Too Pale to Cry."
I would listen to those albums. Like, I wish they had the time to make like little companion pieces.
Yeah, like there was nobody was ready for an album that was nothing but bass.
I'm in. I would love that. Maybe not others, but I want to listen to some Death, even though there's already 2 bands named Death. Probably more.
And he rejoins them, and they all crawl in the SWAT van, and then there's a knock on the back door. They were just gonna leave Dennis there. Dennis the robot, they were just gonna leave him there.
Poor Dennis.
Yeah, they were just gonna...
Number one, beforehand, during the big apology scene, and before they do the true air guitar of the movie, I think when they come back together and they do that double, like, that's the best.
Yeah, and when Death goes, whoa, with it.
Yes. It's like they used that in all the trailers once it was like coming out on streaming and stuff like that. Like, how could you not? But the facial expressions all around during that scene, when it cuts back to the daughters, like they're putting their hands to their face. Like, I was just dying laughing from the acting alone. But then they get in the van. I love the line delivery. Fucking Death is like, let's rock! And then Dennis is like, I like the way that you said, let's rock, because it made me want to rock.
And he's like, you don't get to rock. You earn the right to rock.
It's like they're so weirdly mean to Dennis. And I think by the end of the movie, he earned that right to rock. I salute Dennis.
Yeah.
visual whole movie, and it doesn't even need gore to like back it up. Like it's still so brutal. Is they shoot up into the air and just falling sinners are fucking hitting, smacking, scraping. You hear like the windshield like as people are screaming on their way down the hell.
Yeah, they're just slamming into him, man. That shit was great.
I
And
didn't really recognize that because the movie is so super fast paced. It's like I didn't even remember that from the first time watching. I was like belly laughing. It's such an insane visual.
oh, there's also a line when they were all in hell, and Billy and Theodora mentioned, yeah, we were trying to get all kinds of historical figures to be in your band, and Kid Cudi's here, and he's like, well, I guess I am kind of a historical figure now.
Yeah, that's a good one. And the one that they used in the trailers a lot too. I didn't mention it before because it's like everybody's probably heard it, but I do like that one where it's like, how are you girls doing? And it's like, well, you know, we're dead and we're in hell. Yeah, but aside from that, oh, pretty good. Like that's a good interaction as well.
Yeah. And so they they land up in on a highway or freeway or whatever, and it's a big giant traffic jam because the world's going to shit. And now Saturn is popping up, and he's like, dude, it's a total lunar eclipse, and he's like, man, there's nothing lunar about that, man.
Yeah,
And
during this scene, like, number one, Star Wars vibes. It's like, that's no moon. But I was also like, should have went back in time and talked to Oppenheimer, man. Figure out what's going on with this. That would be such an insane visual. I wonder what that would look like.
And then I do think this is kind of funny when it's showing all people from history zapping all over the place, and you've got the crossing the Delaware, and then Jesus walking by on the water.
Yeah. That was a much better green screen than when he was at the Kid Cudi concert.
Yeah, that was one of the better gags of putting the historical figures into wrong timelines. I thought that was the only part that really made me laugh, with all the zapping all over the place.
Yeah, I'm pretty surprised they included Jesus to begin with. It's a funny visual when he's being ripped at the beginning from the Last Supper as well.
Yeah.
And follow up on that near the end, because doesn't he like show up at the Last Supper like jamming out or something like that?
Yeah, he shows back up at the Last Supper, and now he's got a cowbell, and he's jamming on the damn cowbell.
Cowbell, they're playing Don't Fear the Reaper, basically.
Yeah, right on. And
Which,
so
I don't know why he's celebrating. He's about to be killed.
yeah,
Travis, somebody is going to betray him that night.
yeah.
Judas, I'm fucking watching you.
So now we see Deacon and Missy. They're not gonna make it to the airport. All this shit's going down. Blue sky beam.
Yeah, that's a little generic, but it's so... We're already, like, near the end of the movie that the main focus here is, like, we gotta get this song made, you know?
Yeah.
And the Saturn visual is nice.
And so everything's going to shit. And yeah, previously Bill and Ted had broke the USB with the song on it, and they've only got a couple minutes to get this thing together. And then the princesses show back up, and they said they couldn't find a reality where they were happy because they're happy in this one. And the girls are like, all right, and I like this. They get everyone on stage, and everyone starts jamming, and it's not making any sense. Everybody's just doing their own thing. Because they go ahead, there happens to be a conveniently placed Guitar Center truck there that they open up and get all this music equipment out.
Yeah, just
And-
like a convenience, it's like the Magic Pocket in Cartoon Logic.
Yeah.
Magic Special.
It just happens to have everything all these people need. And
Yeah, just the specific things Jimi Hendrix needs. And like you said, yeah, it starts off as a mess. Once they actually get the song going, though, like, tell me if I'm wrong, but it kind of sounds like something David Byrne would do nowadays on one of his recent albums. It's just this very worldy, little bit of progressive, rocky, poppy, like, it's a little bit of everything.
yeah, the song was definitely a little bit of everything. especially with the big woes, the whoa, that's been real popular in the past decade.
That's how you get it in the top 100. Yeah.
Exactly. That's how you make everybody get into it. And while this is going on, they're like, okay, so we need to get everyone listening and playing at the same time, and all the history. So Bill and Ted and the princesses hop in the time machine and hand instruments to all kinds of people across history, and everyone's jamming. And I will say the song is pretty good. And I'll say I'm happy that the song that actually unites the world is an original as opposed to covering a Kiss song,
Right?
So that was really good.
What a cop-out would it be if the song to unite the world was like, give a little bit of your love to me.
Yeah, right, exactly. So I'm glad they went hardcore original. Give me 2 seconds.
An instrumental too, no lyrics aside from whoa whoa. I see where Dan Chase is coming from, because it's such it's a focal point of the movie. In a weird way, the song is like a MacGuffin. So you do kind of want to hear a full version of it, and it is kind of barely highlighted. But I feel like it's almost like Tenacious D's tribute, right? Like if you actually there's no such thing as the greatest song in the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you were to hear and I'm sure there's an album version of it, because I know they released the soundtrack and they have that crazy progressive song on the album, so I know for a fact they would have to have this one.
Yeah, technically the song that they play with against Dave Grohl, the devil in the movie, technically that is the greatest song in the world.
Yes.
But and I think it's great. I think it is. I would say, as far as in Tenacious D canon, I'm like, okay, that is a pretty great fucking song.
That is one of their greatest songs, yeah.
I'm like, yeah, we'll let that be the greatest song in the world that stopped the devil. But even the devil in that movie was like, you guys are fucking lame. Come on, Cage, you're coming with me. So
it's so funny, just on a side note, in the original series, it's the greatest song in the world was definitely Stairway to Heaven, because that's what Kyle starts fucking...
yeah, he always jams Stairway to Heaven a lot in the original versions of Tribute.
But of course, Legal, going back to Robert Plant, he's like, Oi, loves, $5 million.
And then they give guitars to Bill and Ted, and Bill and Ted start jamming.
Just as bad as Keanu Reeves, I apologize.
Yeah, so they give guitars to Bill and Ted, and they start jamming. And then Kid Cudi doesn't get nothing to do. He just zaps back to the concert.
Yeah. Which, by the way, buddy, everyone's tuning into Bill and Ted right now, so they probably should have just left him there to throw in some bars.
Yeah, because, nobody's caring about that concert from 2 days ago.
Exactly. This is a 2-day-old concert. Everybody left. And that's another thing, too. You really want to get into a top 100? You get, a little rap segment in there, And then the more conservative radio stations have the version where they cut that out. It's a whole fucked up system, but you can make it work.
Yeah, and then it just kind of ends there. They say, "Yep, that's how it happened."
And I like how just bam, it's over. There's really it's simple, but for Bill and Ted, that's exactly what you want. It's the day is saved.
Yeah, and then you get a little montage during the credits of people just jamming out.
The world is good now, yeah. There's no more problems. I think there's a quick cut of Keanu Reeves with a younger version of the daughters, right before we cut the credits, or at least it looked like it. Home footage of them playing around, and then it's just weird TikTok footage of people dancing. And I know it's a trope to end comedy movies on dancing, but it has such a feel-good vibe to it, where typically with comedy movies, it's bloopers. It's cutting to the characters doing manufactured, y'all gonna make me lose my mind up in here, stuff like that.
Yeah, and they tell the robot that he can just be the dancer, and he's just just go over there and practice your dancing. and then it shows the robot dancing, and he's got some pretty sweet moves.
He's the hype man. He's like Justin Silverman in this Rex Viper. But yeah, I liked the movie. I think Bogus Journey, I think we both agree, is probably our favorite of the trilogy. You know, the daughter's kind of bookended at the end, but that's basically it. You know, the movie's over, aside from the, there's the end credit sequence. So,
There was an end credit sequence?
yeah, when you wait till the end of the trailer, the end of the credits, they do a Marvel style. It doesn't set up a sequel. It's old ass Bill and Ted back in the hospital room. Because there is a funny line in the movie before where it's like, should we go back and ask our wise older us's? And I think Ted's like, if they're even still alive.
So what happens in this? What happens in this credit scene?
They're still sitting there in like their little hospital room, and they're just fucking breathing and gagging, and fucking Bill's like, are you dead yet? And he's like, no, not yet. And then they're like, there's still one more thing we have to do before we go. And these geezers get up, like they're all frail, they can't even like straighten out their backs, but they grab their guitars and they just start shredding. Like,
damn, I hate I missed that.
They start doing the classic Bill, and then they're like, yeah, that was nice. And it cuts away, like they sit back down, and then it ends. So I guess they just died. But yeah, they went out swinging. But that's the end. But as I was going back to saying, I think we both agree 2 is our favorite. I think 2 is like the peak creative, the peak filmmaking techniques. Like, this is right before Alex Winter did Freak, so they were really going above and beyond with the practical effects and like the different scenarios. They were already playing around with that subversion of expectation. But I think, again, we said, you know, Bill and Ted 4 comes down to the fans, but I'm perfectly happy with this being the closing point. Little nudge at Clerks 3. Nobody had to die. Nobody had to fucking come back as a ghost, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, they did die, but you get what I mean. Nobody had to be permanently dead, you know.
Yeah, I would say still my favorite is probably Bogus Journey, but this one right here is so good that it's better than the first one as well. So it's like half and half. It's like they both kind of tie for me right now. Whereas this movie, when it comes to legacy sequels, I said with when Force Awakens came out, I said all that movie had to do was be better than the prequels, and people would have loved it. And that is all that movie needed to do. And it did it. It was better than the prequels. But this movie didn't have to be better than anything. It just had to be good. And
it have to be itself, which it is.
Exactly.
You know,
and by doing that, by being, by doing its own thing, it's hard to pick whether I like this one more than 2 or 2 still more than this one. Like, I think this and Bogus Journey are pretty well tied for me. And that's not putting anything on the first movie. The first movie's good, but for a movie like that, and how do you do a sequel? And weirdly enough, they were able to get 2 pretty damn original sequels out of that, which is pretty damn mind blowing.
So I guess that answers my question on what's our favorites, how do we feel. Here's a question I've been thinking about this whole podcast. You are in the telephone booth. Well, who are you putting together for a band?
Ah, good question. Damn.
I know I can't even really think of it, but I'm curious to see what blend you would create.
I have no idea, man. I would probably I don't know. Really don't.
Comment when this episode comes out. Think about it and let me know. I'd be interested to hear what kind of crazy super groups you could come up with.
Yeah, because I don't. Yeah, I'd fuck around. I'd fuck around and. Uh, I don't know, dude. It's such a hard question.
It's such a big question because it's like you could take anybody. Like you
Yeah.
could have fucking. You could go back and get Tom Waits from the '70s and Bach.
Right.
And-
And see, I wouldn't want Tom Waits from the '70s.
I'd want Tom Waits now.
Yeah, from the '80s or late '80s and now, Tom Waits. Right. And you know, I mean, you can get like Kurt Cobain, fucking.
Amy Winehouse.
Right, and what's his name? Jim Morrison.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, I would definitely get Morrison. You could get Elvis.
Yeah,
you
get
know?
Elvis for the fuck of it. You know. Oh,
You
just
could make Elvana a real thing. You know about that cover band where it's like Nirvana, but the lead singer is Elvis?
no, but
That's a real thing that's around. But I'm like, you could make Elvana for real, where you could just bring back Kurt Cobain and Elvis.
so it's like Dred Zeppelin.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing. Or
I feel like
Beatallica. And
I feel like a lot of people. Yeah, I would get Cliff Burton for sure. Now that you bring that up, I
Right.
would go back and
Yeah.
get Cliff Burton and Freddie Mercury in the same room. Let's do it.
Yeah, maybe Sun Ra from Sun Ra's orchestra. Probably get him.
David Bowie. See what he's up to in heaven.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a podcast on its own. Like just theme bands. This is like you're picking athletes in your fantasy football.
Fantasy band camp.
Nah, dude, I'm bringing back Gigi Allen just to fucking bring about the end of the world.
That would make so many people mad.
No, dude, yeah, exactly. Like that's like dropping a bomb in the middle of a city if you were to bring back Gigi Allen now.
He'd wind up dying before anything was done. He'd
He
just
would be
die
like
again.
Dennis in the prison. Like people would be ganging up on him, beating him up.
Yeah. I'd probably get like Hank Williams.
Yes, they'll get Johnny Cash. Somebody that we all could gather around. Not John Lennon, fuck him. I'm kidding. Jesus Christ.
Maybe a Ramon or two just for good measure.
Who was that?
Maybe get a Ramon or two just for good measure.
Sure, yeah, dude. Bring back Joey. Fuck, who was I? Bring back Lemmy. I would get Lemmy.
Maybe go ahead and grab Tupac or Biggie.
Yeah, I was about to say, who are we grabbing from the rap scene? Oh, dude, I'm bringing back MCA.
There you go.
Fuck yeah. All right. This is already like a Slipknot like band already. We have like 15 people.
Yeah. We'll get Keith Moon.
Wait, there was a guy from Slipknot who died, right? We'll bring him back too.
Yeah. Chad. Was it? God, what was the name? Something. Was it Chad Gray? Was that his name? And then Joey Jordison.
I can't even remember right now.
Get Joey Jordison and Keith Moon and have them do a drum off.
Yeah. Oh man. So again, please let us know. Let's add to this army of resurrected stars.
Yeah, hell yeah. So, what's coming up next, people, is we are going to do a Rob Zombie retrospective, and we're going to try and have most of it done throughout the rest of this month and next month, corresponding with Halloween.
Things have been pretty crazy just with my work schedule, but things are getting a little better. Time is opening up, and honestly, I'm in a Rob Zombie mood. I saw him live with Alice Cooper not long ago, and not just get ready for the concert, but also after the concert. I've just gone down the Rob Zombie rabbit hole again.
Yeah.
Last October, I watched a lot of his movies again, so I was already in the mood to talk about it then. I'm even more in the mood to talk about it now. So we'll, like I said, we're going to work towards getting it out all throughout October.
Yeah, and about a week ago, I had listened to every White Zombie and every Rob Zombie album throughout the whole week.
You've done a Speaker Brains on him, right?
We did a Speaker Brains on White and Rob Zombie and his movies, but we did all the movies in one go, and this might have been like 10 years ago, but so we did all the movies. We talked about all the movies within an hour or so. We just kind of skimmed through them. We didn't do it like you and I do, where we just kind of walk through the movie, that's why I want to do this with the Rob Zombie movies, because I'm like, more movies have come out since then. I think at the time, Lords of Salem was his most recent movie when we did that. And he's dropped like, 3 more movies since then? 2 more movies? And hell, I wouldn't mind doing another full-on retro of his music, because at the time I had not heard any White Zombie before Los Exorcisto, and the most recent Rob album at the time was Venomous Rat Regeneration Vendor. So there's been, I have a little more knowledge on the before Los Exorcisto, as well as there's been, 2 or 3 more albums since Rat Regeneration, maybe 2 more albums.
Yeah, and his last album was really good. I think that would be, if you do decide to do the White Zombie one again, that would be a cool, like, if we could do it, me, you, maybe Zach, like, that would be sick.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Because I want to do more Speaker Brains. We've teased, like, the Boingo cast for a while, so if I'm ever to come back to Speaker Brains, it'll probably be Oingo Boingo first.
Oh, yeah.
But I was also texting Travis today that I have basically, like, mainlined Danzig to the vein. Like, I've just listened to all of his stuff within, like, a week, and I have a lot to talk about, because I'm a huge Misfits fan. Like, Misfits is a seminal band for me, especially as, like, the Halloween time is coming back around.
Yeah.
So, somewhere in the line, a Danzig retrospective would be awesome. I'd love to catch up on. I haven't listened to all of Rob Zombie and White Zombie's albums, but I am a very big fan. I love all the hits. So that would be cool to go through. Who knows how far this Rob Zombie retrospective is going to go, or if we, hopefully we could get the Lords of Salem, because I need to catch up on his latter movies. I think El Super Beasto is the last one that I've seen. Hopefully, I don't know if we'll do a whole episode on El Super Beasto, but that'd be nice to throw in a mini review. Maybe do like 2 reviews in one. We're still trying to figure out how we're going to crank this out in the Halloween season, but we want it to be in the Halloween season. So, with this time opening up for me, it should be, it should work perfectly. Hopefully, fingers crossed. I always try to wait for enough cobwebs to enter the basement before we come back in again.
True that. So we could probably try and shoot for next Sunday to do House of a Thousand Corpses.
Hello?
Yo. Can you hear me?
Did we break up for a second?
I heard a weird beep.
Yeah, I heard a weird beep, but did you hear what I was saying, though?
Say it again, just in case.
I was just saying that it's like we're going to do our best to fit this into the Halloween season, because we want it to come out in the Halloween season with the opening, with the time that's opening up for me. Should work out perfectly. Like, we might have to squeeze 2 reviews in one. We're still trying to work out on what we're going to do for it. And I mentioned that the last Rob Zombie movie that I'm caught up with. Oh, shit. Is El Super Beasto.
Yeah. Yeah, so we heard all that. So, but yeah, maybe next Sunday we can work on House of a Thousand Corpses.
I think it might be my side that's fucking with the connection, because it's raining a little hard here, so I think, like, the storm just rolled in and fucked with Skype. I'm not sure if this is where we cut off the podcast. I was basically just talking about how we're going to do the retrospective into October. We're going to try to squeeze it all in.
Even
get
if
up to Lords of Salem.
Even if we can't finish all of them and we run into November, it's totally cool. But I was
That's
just saying, maybe next Sunday we can start on House of a Thousand Corpses.
Yeah, I would dig that. I'm ready to get going because I've been holding off on rewatching it. I've been in the mood to watch the zombie movies, but I was waiting for like right before because that's when the note taking is the best. Like you got to do it like right when it's fresh in your memory.
Yeah. Yeah, let's do
Then all
that.
the images just blend together. All right.
But all right, y'all, we're gonna get out of here.
Sounds good. We'll catch you guys in the next basement episode. Stay tuned. We'll keep you updated. Make sure to keep involved with the Facebook page, The Basement, fresh from the Facebook group. That's where we do the posts right beforehand. We also post on the Dark Discussions podcast page. We also post on our own Facebook pages, basically inviting you to do the same thing, to join the discourse, give us your thoughts. We always like to start the show on what you guys think, because it's always a good jumping off point for the conversations. So stay tuned, get involved. We love to hear what you have to say.
Hell yeah. So we'll see y'all later.
Later.